Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Saturday. My name is Liam Garrity and I'm the Director of Hospitality for Frank Family Vineyards. And we're here today on Winston Hill to do one of my favorite things, which is grilling and talking about wine. Two of my favorite things. We're going to be exploring four wines from Frank Family's estate collection and talking about how these wines pair so well with one of our favorite styles of cuisine here in Napa Valley, outdoor grilling. We have beautiful weather today in Rutherford, and we're joined today by a wonderful chef that we work with quite frequently here at the winery, Chef Christina Machamer. How are you, Chef?
I'm good, Liam. I'm good. How are you?
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Great to see you again,
Yes.
I should say. If you're a fan of our virtual tastings this spring and summer, you might remember Chef Christina joined us just a few weeks ago as we built out the perfect cheese and charcuterie board, and we're very happy to have her back again to talk about the best wines to pair with our favorite items cooked on the grill. Chef has prepared a wonderful meal today that features an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert, and each one of those will be paired with one of our wines today. Joining us today as well is, of course, as always, vintner proprietor Leslie Frank, who's going to be monitoring our chat today and answering some of your questions and interacting with us today. Leslie, how are you?
I'm great, Liam. Thank you. And hi, Christina. Thanks for being back with us, Chef Christina. We had such a wonderful response the last time you joined us here on Winston Hill for our how to make the perfect cheese and charcuterie board, an Instagram-worthy cheese and charcuterie board, and I'm still trying to remember all the tips. I have made a few since then, and it was super informative, and I think it's changed my life because it's given me a little more skill in how to prepare something that looks so appealing to your guests. As always, we want this hour to be fun and informative and interactive. So we will be monitoring your questions and your comments. We want to hear from you. We have viewers that tune in from all over California who are even close to Napa, but we love hearing from our friends and our guests who live across the country as well. And we want to make sure, as usual, that you're paying attention. So we have 4 trivia questions, and the first person to answer the trivia question correctly in the chat section will win a $100 gift certificate to use on the Frank Family Vineyards shop site for any wine or merchandise that we carry. So you want to pay attention to that. But let's get started. I'm going to turn it back to Chef and to Liam.
Thanks, Leslie. The wines that we have today that we've chosen to share from Frank Family, we're going to be tasting the Brut Rosé, one of our sparkling wines. We're going to be tasting 2 red wines, our Zinfandel and our Petite Syrah. And then we'll be finishing with a dessert pairing, which I'm really excited to talk about, which is our late harvest Chardonnay. If you have these wines at home and want to taste along, we encourage it. Any Frank Family wine that you want to share with us while you're watching today is just fine. And we'll talk about how these wines are going to complement the food that Chef Christina is preparing today. Chef, do you want to introduce us to what you'll be making and maybe start us off with an appetizer course?
Sure, it would be my pleasure. So we are doing some of my favorite summertime recipes today. If you're anything like me, you don't want to get stuck in the house. You want to be outside. So we're going to start with a really simple salad. And I love the concept of agrudu, sort of a sweet and a sour as they kind of play off of one another. And you're going to get a lot of that in this salad. It also really works well for summertime because if you can't tell, it's hot. And were we doing a green salad, it might just wilt in the heat. So if you're going to have some family members over, you're going to be playing outside, you want something that's going to last for a couple of hours, this is a great salad for you. So we're going to get started. The main ingredient is the watermelon. So I got this amazing watermelon from the farmer's market. I used a melon baller to cut the melon, and I did that only because it's pretty. You're welcome to dice it. And then I'm always a big fan of using the entire product. So we hollowed out the watermelon rind, and that's going to be our service bowl for today.
Chef, I love the way this looks already. I mean, this is such a creative and fun way to utilize the components of the fruit. And of course, using fruit that's fresh from the farmer's market, the best fruit that you can find always makes for a better experience and a better salad.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So we're going to start out. I've got watermelon in a bowl. This is really easy. You take all the ingredients, dump it in a bowl, and mix it up. So because it's a little hot, we did some wet paper towels here on our herbs. That'll help them to stay a little bit cooler, keep them from wilting. So we're using cilantro in this dish, but you could use parsley, you could use basil, as you mentioned earlier, which would be delicious. So starting with our watermelon, we're going to season it with some lime juice.
And why do you start with that? Is it something about lime juice just keeps it fresh, keeps it bright.
The lime juice definitely adds that kind of sour, fresh note to it. And I start with that because I want the salad to start to marinate a little bit in that lime juice so that the watermelon will pick up some of those qualities. Next, I'm going to add a little diced jalapeno. You can also use serrano, or if you're not a fan of spice, you could skip it altogether. Then I'm going to add some feta cheese. So this is, again, kind of giving you that salty element that just plays really well with the sweet, the sour, and with the wine. And then last but not least, we add in our cilantro. And I'm going to stir this all together, put it in a bowl, garnish it, and first course is done.
Fabulous. That was easy. And these are things that you can prepare ahead of time. If you're having a party, maybe you're having people over, you're being safe at home with your guests. This is something that maybe you can do ahead of time before people arrive, and then assemble the pieces to keep it fresh and to keep it clean and to make your life a little bit easier.
That is absolutely correct. So you can even prep the watermelon a day ahead of time if you would like. Keep it in the refrigerator, and that'll save you a lot of time when you're having guests over.
Well, that was about the simplest salad I've ever seen made. We're going to be pairing this salad today, gorgeous, with one of Frank Family's sparkling wines. And today we've chosen the Brut Rosé. This is probably my favorite wine to enjoy during the summertime because it's light, it's airy, it's breezy, doesn't contain a ton of bright acidity. So some of that acidity that's coming through in the salad won't compete with the wine. We have, I think, really nostalgic flavors in this wine. It comes across a little bit like sorbet. You have soft and supple orange rind and strawberry notes and a real ease and enjoyability, I suppose you could say, with this sparkling wine. Sparkling wines are great with food, great also just to enjoy throughout the summer, easy as can be.
Liam, I have a question from Linda Abramovitz. Abramovitz? I apologize if I didn't say that correctly. She's asking, Chef, what type of feta cheese do you like best? Is it French or other?
I would say other. A sheep's milk cheese, the product that I'm using, it's just something I found at our local grocery store. And I actually got a feta that already has a little pepper mixed in. So you've got kind of that spicy element to it. I've been pretty lazy of late, so I buy my feta already crumbled. But if you really want to make a beautiful presentation, you can get the kind that comes in a block, and then you can dice it, and it just looks a little bit more elegant on your plate.
We've also got a couple of hellos from some of our Frank Family followers that I want to do a shout out. James Tharrell from Waco again says cheers, and cheers to you, James, and thanks for taking this Saturday afternoon to join us. And hello from Debbie Wills from hot Florida. Ooh, it's hot and humid in Florida, I can imagine. I will say that it's pretty hot here on Winston Hill today too, but it's bearable, and it's certainly good for the grapes. It's the type of weather that we need at this time of year. Jenny Zeiss says we're muted. I hope you can hear us now. Maybe we had an audio issue. Dennis Sadomka, hello to all from rainy Augusta, Georgia. Hi, Dennis. Thanks for tuning in again. We love that you're just one of our regular followers. We appreciate it so much. Christy Davis, hello from Waco. We got the wine and the food, and we're ready to enjoy with everyone. I love that. Amy Ellingson. Amy, I know your name. Come on, you're my friend, right? You all look great. Thank you. Hopefully we don't melt out here because it is a warm one. Brian and Wendy say hi to Liam from Wendy and Brian in Ojai. And Daniel Penny, hello from Daniel Penny in Galveston, Texas. Susan Procope says cheers from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I could go on and on. We have a lot of Frank Family followers watching us today, and we appreciate that. All right, back to Liam and Chef.
Thank you, Leslie. It's great to have so many old friends joining us, so many people that have enjoyed our summer series of virtual tastings. We've so much enjoyed this opportunity to engage with fans who can't come see us at the winery, those of you who are too far away to come, or those of you who are choosing not to visit. But I do want to take a moment just to say, here in Napa Valley and at Frank Family Vineyards, we are open for business and we are seeing guests on a daily basis. We see our guests outside with ample safe space between tables. So if you are in the area and you are concerned or curious about coming to Napa Valley, please give us a call and we can explain what our safety protocols are for seeing guests, and come join us if you like. The next course Chef's going to be preparing, probably my favorite thing to eat in the world. Great, great hamburgers. And I'll just speak for myself. As much as I love hamburgers, I am probably hands down the worst burger chef you've ever met. It doesn't matter what I read or what I try or what technique. My burgers always come out looking like shrunken hockey pucks. So I'm really excited today to hear some of Chef Christina's tips so that I can make a better burger at home. Chef, what do you got for us?
So to get to the meat of our tasting, literally. So hamburgers, I think, are something that translates everywhere. But there's a couple of great tips that you can use. And I was lucky when I was learning to be a chef. My mentor had worked with Danielle Ballou crafting the DB burger, which was like the world's first super expensive burger with short ribs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And when he moved to St. Louis to open his restaurant, we also featured a burger. Now, it wasn't quite as opulent, but he did teach me some tips and some tricks that I find really helpful to put together a great burger. And we were the kind of place where people would come in and they would order a $12 hamburger and a $200 bottle of wine.
Perfect.
That's a lot of money in St. Louis to spend. It's a lot of money to spend in Napa Valley even. But it was really cool. I thought that people would come in and enjoy this wine with something that's so simple.
Yeah.
So we're going to start by forming our patties. So you can kind of create your own custom blend. I find that not only using ground beef, but adding a little ground lamb helps to kind of heighten that flavor and give it some really beautiful meatiness. So before this...
Lamb is a little gamier, would you say, right?
I would say yes,
the flavor's
absolutely.
A little bit more intense.
Yes, and you can find it in the grocery store. I went to our local butcher, Fatted Calf, and ordered it, 85% beef, 15% lamb. Now, of course, we're cooking, not baking, so it's give or take. So the first thing I'm going to do, we've got about a pound of the ground beef here. I'm going to get it out of the bag and into our bowl. And the first step in making an amazing burger is to emulsify the meat. So what that's going to do is help the fat and the protein to bind together. And if you're doing just a couple of burgers, you could do it by hand, like we're going to do. If you're feeding a crowd, you can throw it into your stand mixer, the ground beef that is, put it in with a paddle attachment, and then if you happen to have a blowtorch, this is a chef trick, you run it just lightly on the outside of the bowl, and that'll help the meat to kind of warm up and help it to emulsify. But we're going to do it the hard way. So the way to emulsify the meat, you just literally toss it back and forth, hand to hand, until it starts to come together. And you'll see that it'll actually look emulsified. You can see it needs just a little bit more, but the number one thing to test is when you go to form your patty. I don't know if you're able to see how that sort of the burger split apart. Yeah. That's what we're trying to avoid. Okay. So if you've ever grilled a burger and had it completely fall apart on the grill, it's because the meat wasn't emulsified. So this is my first secret in how to make a burger.
Chef, I got to say, it seems like I've read things in magazines or online in cooking magazines that you don't want to overwork the meat. Where's the fine line between the two?
So the fine line, with hamburger, you've got a pretty wide margin of error. I mean, you will notice if it starts to look gummy and more the consistency of a hot dog than a hamburger, you've gone a little too far.
Good to know.
I tend to be a little neurotic about things, so I count, usually tossing it back and forth 40 times works well.
Wow, that's a lot. That's more than I would have imagined. That's great to know.
Now we're going to shape our patty, and this is the other big secret. So right before we got started, Liam was telling me about how when he grills burgers, they come out fat, right? They raise in the middle instead of staying to be nice flat patties. And that's all in how you shape your burger. So as you're cooking it, the fat is going to release some air and some oil, and that's what makes it puff up. So we're going to actually make a patty that's concave. So my patty is going to rise just like yours does, but because we're building that in concave, when it does rise, it'll be flat. So you work from the middle of your patty out towards the edge. So I put 2 fingers in the middle and slowly work it into a patty shape, using my other hand to help keep it round. So we're going to do this till we get to the desired thickness, which for me is about an inch, 3/4 of an inch. But you can see maybe around the edges how the meat hasn't really cracked. It's all stayed together, and that means we did a great job emulsifying it.
And Chef, you didn't add any salt or pepper or seasoning in the meat. This is just letting the great choice of cut of beef that you've made really come through in the burger. Is that right?
You are correct. So if I'm doing something like a turkey burger, you have to add in some fat and some flavor. But this meat is brilliant just the way it is. I am going to season it right before it goes on the grill.
Okay.
But you don't want to season it in advance. So salt through osmosis is going to draw the water out of the protein, and that's going to make your burger dry, and it's just not the best technique to use. So I'm going to liberally sprinkle it here with fresh pepper. And I'll tell you, I love using a pepper grinder. I never buy pre-ground pepper. I feel like the flavor that you get from this is much more beautiful. And then we're going to liberally season our patty. You know, I'm a chef, and so I always have to ask for more salt.
Yeah, that's liberal for sure. But part of that falls away in the cooking process, right?
You know, it doesn't necessarily fall away. However, hamburger, kind of like if you're going to grill chicken, it can take a good amount of salt. Or even your potato salad can take a lot of salt. So we'll season it again. And then I'm going to toss this on the grill for you. Why don't you let us know about our red wines today?
Yeah, I sure will. Absolutely. And Chef, just so you know, when I was a young man in my early 20s, the restaurant and the restaurateur that Chef Christina mentioned earlier, Daniel Boulou, he his restaurant DB Bistro created this incredible hamburger that was legendary in the city in the early 2000s. And as a young som and wine steward and waiter in New York, me and my friends, going to DB Bistro was almost like a religious experience. We didn't talk when we got this burger. We wanted to really take every part of it in. I remember it had braised short ribs, right? And it had like a patty of foie gras inside. It was, to me, one of those first meals that I remember having that I was just so amazed at what a great chef could do. Yeah, for the burger today, we've got two red wines, and they're similar but different. And I love drinking these two wines next to each other, and I love talking about the difference between them. We're going to try first our 2017 vintage Childs Valley Zinfandel, and then second, we'll try our 2016 vintage S&J Vineyard Petite Syrah. Zinfandel has been a program here at Frank Family Vineyards for a long time. It's one of the red wines that we've been making pretty much since the beginning. But early on in our program, winemaker Todd Graff felt like it would do the wine a bit of benefit to give it just a bit of mid-palate and a bit of structure and a bit of backbone to blend in a small amount of Petite Syrah. And that's not an uncommon thing with Zinfandel, adding a little bit of another red grape into the blend to give it just, a bit more firmness and ease up off of its inherent fruitiness. So our Zinfandel today is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 90% Zin, 10% Petite Syrah. The grapes come from the Childs Valley region of Napa Valley, which is one of these high elevation hillside vineyards. Because of that high elevation, the grapes are growing in an abundance of heat, which they need to fully ripen. What I love about Zin, and something that we talked about when Chef Christina was with us last time, is that as a red wine, it comes with a slightly lighter body. It doesn't come as firm or as dry. There's an ample juiciness and brightness of the fruit, balanced by a nice, fresh acidity and just a hint of structure from the tannins. This is a red wine that's going to pair really, really great with a burger, as well as a red wine that you're going to be enjoying before, while you're grilling, after you're done eating, an easier and more approachable expression of the red wine. And I believe it's one of our proprietor, Rich Frank's, favorite wines to pair with barbecue when he's grilling outside.
Rich calls this his two-bottle wine. For those of you who have watched our previous tastings, you know this already, because Rich likes to open one and drink some of that Zinfandel when he's grilling, and then when the food is prepared and we sit down to eat, there's no more wine left for me, so we have to open a second bottle. So it's a two-bottle wine. Before we get too far into our broadcast today, I want to back up just a bit, because you did talk about the Brut Rosé, and we have a trivia question. Let's see who was really paying attention. The question is, what are the main grape varietals found in our sparkling Brut Rosé? The first person to answer the question correctly in the chat section wins a $100 gift certificate to use on our Frank Family Vineyards website in the shop section to purchase wine or any merchandise. Who is the first person to get that correct? Oh, what a surprise. It's Erin Luckett. Erin, I think she's won a few times, right? Erin, yes, the answer is Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. You know, for the rest of you out there, you got to be quick on that chat button. And I will say that Erin and Krista Carberry and Liz McQuinston, they have tuned in pretty regularly since we've been doing these since the shelter in place. And they're on it. I think that they probably know as much about Frank Family as anybody who works for us. In fact, they may know more than Rich Frank. Speaking of Rich Frank and his favorite wine, Rich is here today. And Rich, I know that you love wine, and you also... Rich loves burgers because, you know, his father was a wholesale meat packer. So he grew up eating just the best cuts of meat, and he knows a lot about cooking meat, and he is my grill master, that's for sure. I think he's maybe next to Chef Christina, Rich might be the second best person on the grill that I know. So, hi, Rich.
I wasn't supposed to be here today, but drinking is in and smelling the burgers here, and I couldn't help it. I will tell everybody that anything that hits a grill, it doesn't matter what it is, that's when you want to take out the Zinfandel. Mm-hmm. It's just great. It stands up the fruitiness at the beginning. It's just a wonderful wine for that. In fact, I know later tonight, because we're doing one of these virtual tastings with Festival Napa Valley, and we're having salmon and steak together, and I know I'm taking out the Zinfandel for that. So I'll try not to drink too much right now, but I love it. So that's my little cameo appearance, and now I'm going to go back on the side and drink my Zinfandel and follow the rest of this.
Fantastic. So
thanks, Rich.
So, Christina, before we continue on, I do have someone, Linda Bogner is asking if you would repeat the recipe for the watermelon salad. I think we went through it so quickly because it was a pretty simple to prepare salad, but perfect for summer. Do you have a moment to give a quick rundown of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started out with watermelon, and the rest of your measurements are going to depend on how large or small of a watermelon that you're using. I did a melon baller or a Parisian scoop just to make it look pretty. You're welcome to dice it. From there, we're going to add a good amount of lime juice. So I used the juice of 3 limes for about 3 cups of watermelon. So if you wanted to really write that down, you would use 1 lime for every 1 cup of watermelon. Then from there, I added in a little bit of diced jalapeno, and that's really up to you how much you use. We used about a tablespoon. If you like it spicier, you can always add more, or even add a little espelette or some tahini or some cayenne. Then we added a sprinkle of chopped cilantro and just garnished it with some whole cilantro leaves. We also added a little feta in there as well, and that can be anything. It could be feta, it could be a goat cheese, and you're just doing that to taste. So I added maybe let's say a 1/4 cup of feta to our 3 cup of watermelon salad.
And you can add a little bit more or a little bit less to get creative to your preferences, I suppose. It's a warm day here in Napa Valley, and I'm sure it's a warm day where you are. And as we're drinking red wine outside, you know, it's important to recognize how temperature affects wine's flavors, how we want to enjoy wines with food. When we're planning on having an outdoor party, I don't think there's anything wrong with tucking your wine away in your wine fridge at a temperature of about 55 to 56 degrees. That way, once it's come out and you've opened it and you've been outside for a little bit, the wine, as it comes up in temperature, reaches that ideal serving temperature of around 60 to 63 degrees. At that temperature, you're going to really have the flavors coming out, the brightness of the wine's fresh acidity coming out without the wine being its Zinfandel or Petite Syrah, just getting too warm to enjoy. Chef, how are those burgers coming along?
The burgers are almost ready.
They smell great.
So one tip when you're cooking your burger, I always cook a burger on 4 sides. So I will start with side 1, and then I flip it over to the next side, and then I flip it to the original one, and then finally the last side. And what that does is it helps the muscle proteins to cook evenly. So when it's there and getting shot by that heat, all of the protein kind of seizes. And then as you flip it, that side will relax. And so that's just a little trick that I learned in the kitchens that work really well. I do the same thing with steaks, by the way.
Great advice. The other red wine that we're going to be sampling as we talk about our pairings with burgers is Petite Syrah. And as I mentioned with the Zinfandel, we used the Petite Syrah and we began growing the Petite Syrah as a way to complement the Zinfandel program. As in winemaking, so many times happy accidents occur. There was a vintage maybe more than 10 years ago, sometime in the past, where there was an abundance of Petite Syrah grown, more so than what Todd Graff needed for the Zinn program. And he said, well, let's bottle it. Let's make about 100 or 150 cases, share it in the tasting room, and the wine came out that way, and it really caught hold and really captured people's excitement and imagination. And from that point on, we've been making this program. Petite Syrah comes from Frank family's S&J Vineyard, which is, again, like the Zinfandel, tucked high up in the eastern mountain slopes of Napa Valley's Vaca Mountain region. Unlike the Zinfandel, which, again, is about brightness and freshness and big driven fruits, the Petite Syrah has a bit more of a big and full-bodied and firm nature. It's a little drier. It is a little bit more driven by its tannins. Its fruit notes are a little darker, and its flavors run a little earthier. And this is not going to be a case of one pairing being better or worse than the other, as much as it is really going to be about a person's preference. If you're looking for a red wine that comes a little fresher and brighter, the Zinn is going to be great. But if you're looking for something different and something that really carries a lot of character and a lot of big backbone and structure, I think I think the Petite Syrah is going to be a really fun wine to try.
I personally, Liam, love Petite Syrah, and I think it's going to be great with our burger. However, I love it with s'mores. S'mores. Oh, so, summertime, you light a fire in your fire pit, and then I have a bunch of my adult friends come over, and we come up with like really weird ingredients. We'll get graham crackers, of course, but different cookies or Oreo thins. We'll get some of that really fancy dark chocolate, especially the kind with bacon in it, is delicious. We do a little fruit. You could do bacon slices. You can do an aged cheese. And we have fun while we drink the Petite Syrah. We put these different s'mores together, try the different flavors. My favorite is bacon blueberry dark chocolate with Petite Syrah. It's so good.
I think this is worthy of another virtual tasting just on this topic. I mean, from the way you've described it, I know exactly what I'm doing tonight when I get home.
It's a lot of fun.
S'mores for dinner and dessert.
So while I was finishing up, while we were talking about the Petite Syrah, the burger finished on the grill, and I added a little bit of aged white cheddar while it was still on the grill and allowed that to melt. So with burgers, this is not the right way. This is just the way that I like it. So if you like a different cheese, maybe a blue cheese, or you want to do something a little milder like a provolone, go for it. What I'm going to feature today with our garnish is a little bit of slaw that my Nana used to do. So as a kid, I didn't really like to eat vegetables like most kids do. And so she would hide all the vegetables in this slaw. So we're going to start with that. We've got some diced heirloom tomatoes, a little bit of romaine, and you're welcome to use any salad green. I think iceberg is pretty classic, but I prefer romaine. We've got a little bit of diced red onion, and I actually got this onion today out of Rich and Leslie's garden, which is a lot of fun.
Nice.
And then we're going to finish it with a little bit of horseradish cream. So if you're at the grocery store, in the prepared salad dressing aisle, they sometimes have a horseradish dressing that you can go with. Unfortunately, my store did not have that, so I made this one from scratch. So I used about half a cup of mayonnaise, a quarter cup of sour cream, so 2 parts mayonnaise, 1 part sour cream. I added in some prepared horseradish and then a little salt and pepper. So really, really easy. So we're going to mix this slaw all together. And I'm going to put it on the bottom of the bun. So we've got some beautiful brioche buns.
And you grilled those too, right?
I did. I think you need that kind of flavor. Now, and I'm going to tell you, before I put them on the grill, I brushed them with butter. And I think butter makes everything taste better. So I'm adding the slaw to the bottom because when I put the patty on, that's going to help to keep it on. And top it with our burger. And we're ready to go. That burger, you're absolutely right, Chef. The burger shape looks perfect. That looks like the way it looks when you go to your favorite burger restaurant.
I didn't really show it to anybody, did I?
Mine never look like that. I'm sorry. Mine just get short and tall, and I'm definitely going to take advantage of some of the techniques that I've learned today.
We have a couple of questions here from our viewers. Heidi is asking, how long does Chef Christina grill the burger on each side? And similar question from Dan and Nancy Fuller. They're asking, what temperature and time is the burger cooked? So that's a great question. And unfortunately, there's no great answer because everybody likes their burgers cooked differently. I know Rich and I like ours
rare. Leslie likes her done a little bit more. So that's really going to affect your time. You also want to look at the temperature of your grill. Do you have it on high? Is it on medium? So if you are using a meat thermometer for a rare burger, you're going to want to be somewhere in between 130 to 135 degrees. Now, if you're cooking for, say, my son, who's only 16 months, I like to cook it all the way through. So I can double check by temping it out to 165 degrees, and that way I know it's killed anything that could be in there. When he's adult, he can have his rare burgers. So I know that's not a great answer, but on this grill, I would say it took about 3 minutes for each side. Keep in mind we're cooking 4 sides.
4 sides.
So about 12 minutes total, and I have the grill on high. So I hope that helps.
Chef, my mom gave me a very nice meat thermometer for Christmas. And I got to say, it was one of the best gifts I've ever been given. I use it all the time because you're never sure. You're never sure. So 165 equates to like a solid medium. But
solid well done.
Oh, a solid well done.
So
Okay.
165 is perfect for ground turkey, a well done hamburger, any of your chicken. If you're going to put food on a buffet, you want to keep it to about that temperature. 130 to 135 is pretty good rare to mid-rare.
Got it. That's great. The burger content has a high content of fat, right? Your mix?
About 15% fat, give or take. And don't worry about that in the context of caloric value. Fat is going to add some moisture and some flavor, and a lot of it is going to render off on the grill. So now that it's fully cooked, it's not 15% anymore.
Of course not. Okay, I get it. Whenever I'm thinking about pairing wine with food, I'm looking at the flavors of the wine, but I'm also looking into the structure of the wine. I want to know what the wine's acidity feels like. I want to know what the tannins feel like, and I want to know how those physical sensations of the wine are going to complement the foods that I'm choosing to pair. For example, a nice juicy burger, a beautiful piece of cheese, maybe some bacon as an accompaniment. This is a wonderful meal that has a fair amount of richness in it, and for something like that, I personally might be more inclined to pick a wine that does feel a little drier, like our Petite Syrah. Those tannins and the way that they juxtapose or complement the richness of cuisine are going to create that balance that I'm looking for on my palate. Something with maybe less of a fat content, or maybe more rendered, or maybe something more slow cooked where that rendering does come through more. That might be an occasion where I like the brightness and the freshness of the Zinfandel. There's so many ways to look at the way food and wine relate to each other, and so many fun experiences we can have as we explore that relationship.
Yes, there's nothing to do in Napa Valley except to eat, drink, and then talk about eating and drinking. So,
and let me tell you, the way that burger smells, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here and I'm like, how much longer are we? Because I'm starving sitting here. You can't, those of you at home, you can't smell it, but you can imagine. And I will say that Christina, I consider myself a bit of a burger aficionado. So, I know that Christina makes probably the best burger. So if you follow her tips today, you too can have the best burger. I want to go back to something that Liam touched on earlier and just see who out there was paying attention, because we do have another trivia question. And the question is, what temperature can you chill and serve your bold red wines in the summertime? What's the temperature that you should serve your bold red wines in the summertime? Oh, wow, Heidi got it. Heidi, oh, it's going really quickly here. What's Heidi's last name? Heidi, you know who you are. Let me see if I can scroll back here. Am I going back here? Let's see, how do we get back here? There we go. Yes, there we go. She sent it again with her name. And am I supposed to pronounce your last name, Heidi? Heidi B? Can we just say Heidi B? Yes, Heidi Baruz. Yeah, you know who you are. Heidi, we're going to be reaching out to you. You won $100. Please don't be upset that I do not know how to pronounce your last name, but I know that you won, okay? So we have another trivia question here. And Christina, are you going to talk about the burger a little bit more, or are you moving on to the next dish?
I can do either.
All right, because I know that you said this earlier, so I'm going to ask the question now. We'll do 2 in a row. How's that? Next trivia question. How does Chef Christina suggest combining fat and protein before grilling your burgers? It's a term here, and we'll see who was really paying attention. Oh, yep. Doug Wager. Doug Wager, you got it. Emulsify. That's the word we're looking for. You got it. Wow, this is a really smart group that's tuned in today. They're really on it. They're paying attention.
They really are.
We love that.
That to me, Chef, is the biggest takeaway that I'm taking from this, is the way you handled that burger, the way that you really brought that emulsification process together. Just made so much sense to me now.
Thank you, Liam.
Yeah, and this burger looks amazing.
As a young chef, Thomas Keller once said to me that I'll give anybody my recipes because they don't necessarily have my technique. And that's what's so important about this recipe. It's not the toppings or the cheese or the bacon and the fried egg that you're going to put on it tomorrow morning. It's really about being able to emulsify and then shape that patty correctly so that you get a nice uniform shape, and also it cooks more evenly that way. So,
Christina, I have a question for you, and this is, we've touched on this in our previous virtual tasting when you were here to show us how to make the perfect cheese and charcuterie board. Your background, you have worked with Chef Thomas Keller. You've opened a couple of his restaurants. I know that you worked at the French Laundry and you opened Bouchon in Los Angeles. What I think is super interesting, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here because anybody can Google you and see on YouTube that you did win season 4 of Hell's Kitchen with Chef Gordon Ramsay, and you were exactly the same. What was that, back in 2008? Is that correct? 2008. You're exactly the same today as you were then. Your energy and your spirit and your passion for cooking, and I love to see it. But can you just I digress a little bit. Can you just give us an example of what it was like being on that show, the high pressure, and how you just stayed so calm and well, obviously you won the show.
Well, maybe I have a poker face because I did not feel calm. I'll tell you, on the first day, I mean, so out of my element. Never done anything like that. And after walking in on set, if somebody would have said, Christina, would you like to go home now? I would have said, yes, please, because it's scary. But to put it into some context, I was in culinary school at the time. And my job, rather than getting a job off campus, I was a resident advisor. And a resident advisor in the underage dorm, I was 25. So I had 450 crazy kids that, you know, the Culinary Institute goes year round. So I'm getting kids that are out of high school for only 2 weeks and they're homesick. There's drugs, there's alcohol. I'm locked out at 3 a.m. I don't know if I want to be a boy or a girl. And so there was a lot of this like issues that I was dealing with. So once I got on set at Hell's Kitchen, I only had 15 crazy people to deal with, not 400. So I was in a much, much better position. And I think that really led to a lot of my success. Also, being in culinary school, we were learning formulas and recipes. So one thing they don't tell you is that you don't get the recipe for ice cream on the show. You have to know it. So if you want to feature that as a dish or a technique, you have to be able to draw on that. And because I was studying at the time, I had all of that top of mind. I probably wouldn't do as well now. Older, a little slower. I like to take my time and drink wine, but it was a really exceptional experience for me. So.
It was a young person's game, you think, huh?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, to be honest, being a chef, and I get kids all the time that ask me for their advice, and I'm like, go be a doctor. You know, you have to love it because the hours are grueling. You're not going to get paid. I didn't actually work for the French Laundry. I was there for free. So, I'm not kidding.
You worked for free. You worked at the French Laundry.
Yes, but didn't get paid, so it's different. It's a hobby, not a job. So, you know, the one thing that I say is that you have to be really passionate about what you're doing. But because if you don't love it, there's no other benefit that you're going to get until you move to Napa Valley, retire, and get to do things like this for a living, which is fabulous.
Well, you're clearly passionate about it, and your work today speaks for itself. These are beautiful dishes. And we've had an appetizer in our watermelon salad, and now a wonderful main course in our burger. Now it's time for dessert. And
I agree.
Dessert is so today is all about barbecuing, and we're talking about dessert. So how does that work?
So seasonality is really kind of the driving force behind this idea. We have so much stone fruit, peaches, and beautiful nectarines and apricots that are coming ripe to the market. So I really wanted to showcase that. So I grabbed a couple of peaches. I did a mixture of white and yellow, and we're just going to cut them in half very simply. twist, and it should come apart. These are ripe, so they come apart pretty easily.
They look perfect.
If you're using a underripe or more of a tart peach, you're going to have a little bit more difficulty removing the pit. But I do like to use those, say, in a tomato salad. Going back to that kind of, mixture of sweet and sour. You've got the inherent sweetness of the tomatoes and the stone fruit, but also higher levels of acid, which are really beautiful.
So you would blend like the heirloom tomatoes with the more tart peach and nectarine.
Correct, exactly.
Fun.
But because we're doing dessert, we're going to pair with a sweet wine. We want a sweeter peach. So I'm going to brush these all with butter, and then I'm going to place them on the grill.
So cool.
And we're just looking to get a little color. The sugar in the fruit is going to caramelize. And then we're actually making grilled peach sundaes today.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
So let me pop these on the grill. Do you want to introduce which wine we're serving?
Absolutely. Yeah, so this is a wonderful opportunity to showcase one of the wines that we rarely talk about at the winery. He has the right. I guess you can take that burger, sir. Enjoy it. This is one of the wines that we rarely share at the winery just because it's such a special wine and we make very little of it. This is our late harvest Chardonnay, and this is a sweet dessert wine. I love drinking sweet wine, and I love pairing sweet wine because for me, it's in the pairing that the true nature, the true essence of the wine is able to be on display. Many people, when they talk about drinking sweet wines, they say, well, yes, it's good. I like its flavor, but it's sweet. And that's true. That's the case. It is sweet. When paired with something sweet from the table, though, it's fun to see how the sweetness of the plate can almost neutralize the sweetness of the wine. And so anytime I pair a sweet wine, I always like to pair it with something sweet because the sweetness from the plate will kind of soften the sweetness of the wine and tend to choose a sweeter dish over a sweeter wine. Once that sweetness from the wine is in essence neutralized by the sweetness from your pairing, a wealth of really wonderful flavors is able to be on display in the wine. In this late harvest Chardonnay, we're smelling and tasting dried apricot and quince paste and honeysuckle and really ripe stone fruits like the peach and the nectarine. So this, I think, is going to be a really wonderful pairing. If you're not familiar with this style of wine, this late harvest Chardonnay is made in a style that's referred to as botrytis wine. And botrytis is also known as noble rot. And it's a process wherein grapes are left on vine for an additional period of time, usually somewhere around 6 weeks to 2 months after the original fruit was picked. And over that time, they start to turn into raisins. And there's the noble rot, a fungus that assists that process. And the sugar content is rising and the water content is receding and the grapes taking on this wonderful, beautiful, different hue in its color. And then you pick those grapes and make the wine at that time. In doing so, you've shifted the sugar and water ratios. So the wine that comes out at the end comes through with a bit more sweetness but a much more pronounced and exaggerated wealth of flavors. This is our late harvest Chardonnay.
I love the late harvest Chardonnay, by the way. Wine for me is like shoes. Like I need all of the colors, all of the styles. But particularly with this one, I get a lot of honey notes. So we've got our grilled peaches. I'm going to top them with a little bit of ice cream. And I chose a honeycomb ice cream to kind of marry with that pairing. However, feel free to experiment. Cardamom, cinnamon would be gorgeous. Yeah. Any kind of ice cream will work. So we're going to go fast because it's hot out here and it will melt. So I had my ice cream scoop and I had it in a jar of hot water. And that's just going to help us to get a nice clean scoop. Onto our peach. And then I like to have a little bit of crunchiness. So I'm going to add on top a little bit of granola. And this is just a honey granola. It has some nuts and some hemp seed. And then we're going to finish it off with a drizzle of honey. Most people probably have a honey bear at their house. I also have a secret ingredient that I like to use. It's a truffle honey. And I love truffle honey on so many different things. It's great on a salad with a lemon vinaigrette. On this dish, it's going to add just a touch of earthiness.
Wow.
And I love the way that kind of truffly, mushroomy note carries through when we're having a beautiful wine like a Chardonnay or a late harvest Chardonnay.
That looks fantastic. Chef Christina, I love all your techniques and everything you've done today, done with such a personal flair. It's really beautiful to watch.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I love being out here and doing things like this.
The sweetness of the peaches, what would you say, caramelized a little bit from the heat of the grill?
Yeah, definitely. So that's what these grill marks are here. That is the sugar in the peach that is caramelizing, and it's going to add some kind of toasty, smoky notes. And that's just another layer of flavor that's beautiful with these peaches.
Fabulous. When the sweetness from that peach occupies that place on your palate where sweetness comes through, paired with the dessert Chardonnay, you're going to see those honeysuckle notes and those wonderful dried apricot notes and something really fun, really floral, which I think is a real signature of the way Todd makes his Chardonnays, that they have that vein of a floral note to them. And that's really coming through in this wine as well.
Definitely. And one thing I wanted to note about this dessert pairing, obviously we used ice cream, so it's dessert. Another great thing I love to do with the ripe stone fruit, grill it off and then serve it with burrata as a main course or as a salad.
An appetizer.
I like that with the Chardonnay, not the late harvest, but the regular beautiful rich Chardonnay with that burrata cheese. It's just
Are there certain fruits that lend themselves to grilling and others that don't?
I think that's definitely true. I mean, things like apples or peaches or stone fruit are going to be able to take the grill, but if it's a little bit lighter, like you're never going to grill a blueberry. It's just not a thing.
I've tried it. It doesn't work. Trust me.
So, think about heartier, think about tree fruits. And if you do have a more delicate fruit, at home, I'm not going to start my grill just for two of us, right?
Chef, can you tell us how long do you grill those peaches for? We have a guest, Jean is asking.
Oh,
Could you
perfect.
repeat that?
Again, I have no answer. No, if I measured things, I would be a baker. So it depends, again, on the heat of your grill. So I told you we had our grill on high, and I'm just grilling it until it gets some grill marks. So probably 2 minutes in one direction, and then maybe another 2 minutes, I flip it 90 degrees, and that's how you get your hash marks onto the peach. If your grill is running lower, it may take a little while, but just look for the color of the peach. And I did want to mention, if you don't want to fire up your grill, there's a great cast iron grill pan that you can find anywhere, and I'll use that in my house. If you want something to go pretty quick and you just want dessert and you don't want to go outside and start your grill, that's a great way of achieving the same results.
Michael Lehman is asking, what about grilling pineapple and bananas? Does that work with this dish?
I've never tried to grill a banana. Pineapple, definitely. I've seen some interesting things people are doing. I saw somebody peeled a watermelon, covered it in jerk spices, and did that on the grill. I personally haven't experimented
Something to look
in that
forward
direction. So, Leslie, what are the final questions everybody has?
So we have a lot of questions and comments, and
I
wish I could get to everyone who has commented, but I think people are really enjoying this this wine pairing and tasting today and food preparation, Christina. But I do want to mention Linda Penny. Linda is celebrating her 60th birthday today, and she is enjoying this tasting with her family.
Great.
And we want to extend our birthday wishes to Linda, and thank you so much for taking the time on this Saturday to be with us at Frank Family, and of course with Chef Christina. We appreciate you taking the time, and happy birthday. We hope it's a good one, and we hope that you're enjoying some Frank Family wine as you are watching along. Let's see. I had a question about the cheese. Can you use an all-American cheese on your burger?
Of course.
I think cheese is really just a personal preference, right?
It is, exactly. And you could do any variations. And if anybody out there has a great formula that they like to use, a cheese or a sauce, I'd love to hear it because I'm happy to experiment with more burgers. So I did go with an aged white cheddar. And anytime, just like we discussed when we did our cheese and charcuterie board, anytime you're aging something, you're going to have a little bit more concentrated salinity. The flavor is a bit more robust. So going with a Petite Syrah and a Zinfandel, I figured that would be a really nice match. If I'm going to do a delicate or very expensive Cabernet Sauvignon, I might go with something that's like a mild cheddar or a provolone or something along those lines, so it doesn't compete as much with the Cabernet.
What a fun way to approach it, just to think about what wine it is you'll be pairing as you make these little choices, these little things that we have that we can kind of shift our meal in one direction or the other as it complements the wine. I also love blue cheese and Zinfandel, and I think blue cheese on a burger would be just fantastic.
I ate half of this already.
How is the burger, Rich? How's the burger?
And it's dripping and it's delicious. We don't have a hamburger shop to sell, but this is fantastic.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoy it.
And I couldn't carry my glass with me because I'm dripping all over myself, but this is fantastic.
I just want to make sure, Christina, did you throw a couple extra burgers on the grill?
I definitely did. Okay. I made lunch for everyone.
I mean, today. I know the reason that, our behind-the-scenes team, our marketing people, the only reason they're here today on a Saturday when they normally be off is because they know you're doing burgers, and they said, okay, as long as there's a burger for us afterwards, we'll work on Saturday.
Yes, exactly.
That was the trade-off. I do have a question from...
If I finish, can I have dessert?
You can have whatever you want, Rich. I mean, I'm not the boss of you. Contrary to what you think, I'm not the boss of you. So you can have dessert. Chris Hilton wants to know, you had the skin on the peaches. What would it do if you took the skin off the peaches for that dessert? Can you grill them that way?
That's a good question. And yes, you can.
Because you're not grilling the skin side, right?
Correct. I was only grilling the cut side. You can also grill if you take the skin off that other side. So if you have a peach and you're looking to peel it, the best way to do that is bring some water to a boil. You're going to cut a cross shape into your peach, drop it in the water for about 10 to 15 seconds, and that'll loosen the skin. And then once it pulls up, you could peel that off. So if you had that other exposed side, you could grill it and you'll get just a little bit more flavor and nuance from it.
Yeah. Does that trick work for tomatoes as well?
It does.
Yeah. That's
good question.
Great trick. Great technique.
Yes.
You're full of great techniques today, and I've enjoyed so much hearing them from you. I think my family's going to be excited I did this tasting today because I am coming home armed with a whole new array of skills that I intend to implement in tonight's dinner. Leslie, are there any other questions from the crew?
We have a trivia question.
Oh, good.
Again, we're almost the hour's almost up, but we want to see who is really paying attention. And I know that you touched on this, Liam, and we'll see who caught it. So the question is, when pairing wine with a dessert, you should always make sure that your wine is blank. First person to answer correctly in the chat section. Let's see. Well, okay, yes, all right. Who said sweeter? Let's go back. I gotta move this. I'm also the technical director today, so I apologize if you don't like the camera shots. You can blame me. Let's see. We have you. I have to tell you, we have a really smart audience.
We do, and they listen and they pay attention.
They do,
and they're drinking, which is doubly impressive. That.
All right, Dino Amicho, sweeter. Yes, you want to make sure that it is sweeter. That
the plate is sweeter than the wine. You want the sweetness of the dessert to supersede the sweetness of the wine. In doing so, the wine's nuances and its flavors won't be will be on display. You'll really get the essence of the wine when the sweetness of the wine is neutralized by the sweetness from the plate.
Okay.
This is also, because we touched on it earlier, dessert wine, we always talk about great wine and cheese pairings. And if you were going to pair a dessert wine like Late Harvest Chardonnay, I think a really pungent, really fresh blue cheese would go really, really well with it. It's an intense wine, and it stands up to intense dishes. Sauterne is a style of wine that comes from Bordeaux, France, and there's a wonderful French pairing of Sauterne, the sweet white wine, with foie gras. And that's another fun way to go with a wine like this if you were to be doing something more decadent. For me, the summer dishes that we do, cheesecake, the grilled peaches, flan, strawberry shortcake with my kids, these are all things that I really love to do. Apple pie, absolutely. Oh. That would be great. What we wanted to show today was how some of Frank Family's more unique and more specific wines can be excellent when thought of, are excellent all the time, but can also be really fun to choose when pairing specifically to certain dishes. And I hope that came through today.
I think that we have a couple more questions. One, I'm going to direct this to you, Liam. Wendy and Brian are asking, what would you recommend with the Lady Edith?
Lady Edith, a great question, and a wine that we haven't, that we're not sharing today, but a wine from our sparkling program. So Todd Graff our winemaker, really dials in on the traditional method of sparkling wine production. And for those of you watching today, what is the traditional method? It's the way in which the wine is produced that involves resting the wine on the expired yeast cells. So just not to get too deep into the process, but when a sparkling wine is made, it's fermented in the bottle. This is what the traditional method is. It means that the wine is physically fermented in the bottle itself. And because the wine is fermented in the bottle, it means that those yeast cells that are driving the fermentation, they're resting in the wine as it matures. As those yeast cells expire and decompose, we call that, that term is called lees. And as wine sits in contact with those yeast, that's referred to as being sur lees, or resting on yeast. In the sparkling wine realm, the longer the wine spends on those yeast cells, the more opportunity that yeast has to layer its own flavor into the wine. And so with a wine like Lady Edith, which is rested sur lees for a longer period of time, about 8 years, versus our traditional sparkling wines, which are rested on the yeast for more like 4 years, you have a more complex flavor in that Lady Edith. Yet it's still a relatively young wine, and it still brings a lot of that good fresh acidity. Long story short, I love Lady Edith for its array and its wealth of flavors. I'm less inclined to pair that as much as I am to sip it and enjoy all the work that went into making it. But if I was going to do it, I'd pair it with buttered popcorn. That's one of my favorite things to do with sparkling wine. The richness and texture and saltiness of the popcorn versus the crispness and the brightness and the fresh of a great sparkling wine like Lady Edith, to me, is a knockout combo. And it makes movie night a lot more fun.
Of course, Christina is, she's preparing our burgers.
Oh,
so,
great.
You know, I know that they're pretty mouth-watering. We've been sitting over here just for the last hour smelling those burgers on the grill, and I can't tell you how good they smell. We haven't had lunch yet, so I'm a little hungry. Paula Noble is asking if Christina's recipes will be available after our broadcast. The answer is yes. They're currently on our website, frankfamilyvineyards.com. Go to the blog. If you go to the homepage and then scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the blog. Click on the blog, and they're in the current blog. So the recipes are there. If you didn't catch it all today, if you missed something, or if you just need it all printed out right in front of you, it's there. So, all right, Christina, I'm gonna toss it back to you. How's it? How's my burger coming over there?
It's almost done, Leslie.
And it looks great.
All right. Chef, I want to thank you again for taking the time to be with us today. You are always amazing and always an inspiration. And I'd like to say that, you inspire me so much that I'm going to spend some time in the kitchen and learn how to cook. But because I know you so well and we have just such a wonderful relationship, I don't have to do that because you will come and cook for us, and
Exactly.
we are so fortunate to have you. So thank you. And Liam, thank you again. Do you want to just one more time go through the 3 dishes that we prepared today, saying them by name and the wines that we paired with them?
Absolutely, Leslie. Thank you. So we started today's pairing with Chef Christina's watermelon salad with cilantro and feta cheese, and we paired that with Frank Family's Brut Rosé traditional method sparkling wine, a sparkling wine made predominantly of Pinot Noir with just a touch of Chardonnay to brighten it up and freshen up that acidity. That was a wonderful,
Do we
subtle...
have that salad? Can we bring that salad back into the shot?
Yeah,
just,
I think we have that.
Just to
We
give
have that
viewers
for
a
shot.
peek at how beautiful that is.
And Chef Christina's preparation of this dish was so creative, but so easy to pull off and so authentic. It really is a beautiful display. Something that can be done in a larger version or a smaller version. The red fruit from the strawberry, from the watermelon, really complements the Pinot Noir notes in the sparkling wine. With our burgers, we went 2 ways with burger, both red wines. One with the Zinfandel, a more medium-bodied red wine with lighter tannins and a bit more fruit-driven on the palate. And then also the Petite Syrah, a firmer and more tense and darker and earthier expression of red wine with more tannins, something that I really appreciate, especially when I'm pairing with a rich dish. And then lastly, our final pairing was grilled peaches with ice cream, a truffle honey drizzle, and that crunchy honey granola, pairing with Frank Family's late harvest Chardonnay, notes of quince paste, honeysuckle, apricot, stone fruit, all perfectly in line and complementing the notes of flavor in the dessert dish, but also the sweetness from the dessert, balancing out the sweetness of the wine and making for that truly perfect pairing. And that, to me, Chef, is what a perfect pairing is all about. When the flavors of the wine and the food come together so seamlessly, and then also when the wine's underlying structure complements the richness of the dish, complements the sweetness of the dish, that duality of relationship and partnership is to me what a perfect pairing is.
It is. What a great way to spend a Saturday.
As we wrap up, Liam, why don't you tell us about the next virtual tasting that's coming up on Thursday, August 6th?
That's going to be really fun, folks, and I hope you all tune in for this one. I'm really excited about this because in this tasting, we come back to my home, which is the tasting room. All of your favorite wine educators from Frank Family Vineyards are going to be there with us. We're bringing the virtual tasting back into the tasting room with Frank Family's wine education staff sharing their favorite wines with our guests. And we'll be sending out some information to your email shortly on a package that we put together for it. That's going to be Thursday, August the 6th. We're also, just for those of you who live in California or close by, Frank Family Vineyards is open to the public, and we're seeing guests every day. We have ample, beautiful outdoor space on our property where we're able to safely welcome guests and share the wine that we make. This is a wonderful time to come to Napa. Summertime is here. The days are beautiful, and we hope that you come see us. If you have any questions about what we're doing to maintain the safety of our staff and our guests, give me a call. I'm at the winery every day, and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Chef Christina.
It's my absolute pleasure, but it sounds like it's lunchtime.
It is. And of course, thank you, Rich and Leslie, for joining us today at our virtual tasting.
Cheers,
Cheers, everyone. Enjoy the day.